It was a Wednesday, one of those too warm for March southern mornings where the humidity sticks to your skin like something left unsaid. Mr. Len adjusted his old brown cap and pushed open the front door of Honeythatch Café. The chimes above the door gave a lazy jingle as he stepped inside, the cool air licking the back of his neck. He didn't expect applause. He didn't need a welcome mat. But he damn sure didn't expect what he got. Excuse me, sir?" The young woman at the counter looked up from her iPad, eyes darting to his overalls, the scuffed boots, the weathered hands that held a folded paper slip. Her voice had that stretched customer service sweetness, like syrup over something spoiled. "This entrance is for customers only," she smiled, but her eyes didn't. "The service staff usually goes through the back alley, around the dumpsters." Len blinked slow. She wasn't mean, not outright, just sure. The kind of sure that came from thinking the world was hers to arrange. Her blazer was coral pink. Her curls were carefully ironed into bouncing spirals. She hadn't looked twice. "I see," Len said, voiced like a low cello string. "I can have someone unlock the back for you. Do you have your badge or—" Len held up the slip of paper. "No badge," he said. "I just came to check on something." "Okay, well—" Before she could finish, a tall barista appeared from the kitchen, eyes widening when he saw Len. Oh, that's Mr. Leonard." His voice dropped, like it had bumped into something holy. The hostess frowned. "Okay. And?" The barista stepped forward quickly, wiping his hands on his apron. "Mr. Leonard owns the building," he whispered. "Like, the whole block. He's the landlord." "Mr. Leonard, sir, do you need anything? I can get Deshawn to bring your usual—" Len raised a hand. "I ain't here to trouble nobody, Andrew. Just passing through. Wanted to see what they'd done with the place." Andrew nodded fast, almost tripped on himself trying to pull out a chair. Len stayed standing. The cafe was beautiful, he'd give them that. The walls were pale mint and honeycomb tile. Edison bulbs dangled low over reclaimed wood tables, and someone had written a quote from Audre Lorde across the far wall in gold foil. Pretty words. Easy to decorate with when you didn't have to live them. He glanced over at the young hostess still frozen behind the iPad stand. She hadn't said a word since the barista told her who he was. Just stood there, shoulders tight, like maybe silence could undo what she'd already shown. That's what people like her never understood. The back entrance wasn't just a door, it was a history, a wound passed down like a family recipe, unspoken but not forgotten. It was that same back door his daddy had used in 1963 when they first opened the diner here. The building had been a grocery before that. Before that, a shoe shop that wouldn't size shoes for black feet. Len's father, Harold Bennett Sr., had mopped floors in this very spot, long before it was marble and espresso, before it smelled like cardamom and oat milk instead of bleach and grease. Back then, the only way a black man got into a restaurant was through labor. The front was for white folks. Len leaned on his cane, staring at the counter. "Y'all kept the tile," he said, voice soft. "Right there, under the register. That square? My daddy laid that hisself. Cost him 3 nights' sleep trying to get it level." Andrew followed his gaze, swallowing hard. "Didn't know that, sir." "Course you didn't. Ain't no plaque on the floor saying who bent their back to make it shine." He looked back at the girl. "You from around here?" She shook her head. "No, I'm from Michigan. Moved here for school. My boyfriend's in real estate." Len raised an eyebrow. Real estate." He looked around again. It all came back in waves. The heat from the stove, the stink of fryer oil, the laughter from white customers who never tipped. His mother's hand on his shoulder, whispering, "Don't stare too long, don't speak too loud." "Sir, I really didn't mean—" she began. "I know," he interrupted. "You didn't mean anything. That's the problem." She flinched. But they still couldn't see him, still mistook him for the help. still told him to go around back. "Y'all got a meeting with the landlord next Thursday, don't you?" Len asked Andrew. "Yes, sir." "Good. Tell your manager I'll be there in person. Think it's time we talked about who gets to stay and who needs to find a new block to gentrify." The words hung in the air, and Len smiled just a little, not out of spite, out of clarity. Because some debts don't get paid in dollars. They get paid in recognition. By the time Len stepped back onto the sidewalk, the air outside felt different, not cooler. The sun still sat heavy on his shoulders, but quieter, like the building itself was listening now, like the bricks and beams and ghost-slick floors knew something had shifted. He walked slow down the block, his cane tapping steady against the sidewalk he used to sweep as a boy, where his uncle once shined shoes, where Ms. Dolores used to sit in her window, handing out cold lemonade to the postman and anybody with good manners. "I'm not here to erase them," he said. "I'm here to remind them." Then he looked out the window, same block, new faces, same blindness. "They don't see us until we own what they're standing on." He tapped the lease drawer. "But that don't mean we gotta let 'em stay." The framed photo went up that Friday. "Though they've got a petition now," she said, handing him her phone. "Online signatures, trying to say they're being bullied, claiming you threatened to kick them out for a misunderstanding." Len scrolled slowly, read every comment. Some were from locals, some from tourists who'd never even been to the block. One said he was weaponizing his ownership to intimidate a young woman just trying to do her job. He handed the phone back. "Good," he said. "Let 'em talk." Nina smirked. "You want me to respond?" "No need." He tapped the side of his mug. And the café. Their lease renewal was still sitting in his drawer, unsigned, unanswered, and come next month when the time came. There'd be a different kind of meeting, one where he didn't have to raise his voice, because power, when it's quiet, echoes louder than any shout. The renewal meeting was set for 3 p.m. sharp. By 2:50, Len was already in the building, seated in the same creaky conference chair he'd been using since the late 90s. No assistants, no lawyers, just him, his cane leaning against the edge of the table, and a black leather folder with the cafe's lease tucked neatly inside. Across from him sat Nina, calm, phone set to vibrate, pen poised like a sword. She didn't ask questions. She already knew what her grandfather had decided. She was just there to witness. The cafe owners arrived together, Matt and Lindsay Wyatt, white, early 30s, dressed like they were going to a TED talk and a yoga retreat at the same time. Matt had the nerve to wear a fedora indoors. "Mr. Bennett, thanks for meeting with us," Matt said, all charm and pretense. "We just wanted to clear the air after that little incident. Really unfortunate misunderstanding." Lindsay jumped in, her voice syrupy with performative concern. "We absolutely adore being in this community, truly. And if anything we did came off the wrong way, we just want to be clear it wasn't intentional. We value history. We're even launching a new Heritage Toast series next month." Len didn't move, didn't blink, just opened the folder. "How you said you value history," he said, voice smooth as still water. "But do you know any?" They exchanged a glance. "Well, we're learning," Lindsay offered. "We actually have a diversity consultant." Len held up a hand, not loud, not harsh, just final. "I'm not asking about your consultant, I'm asking about this block, about what it cost, who walked it, who wasn't allowed to." Matt shifted uncomfortably. "Look, we know your family has deep roots here, but business is business. We've built a brand that aligns with—" "Built it on land my father couldn't even eat on," Len interrupted. His voice was still quiet, but something in it made Nina look up. "I remember the for colored only sign that used to hang outside that diner, right where your mimosa chalkboard is now." Lindsay's face went pale. I remember walking 5 blocks just to find a restroom that didn't have a padlock on it. I remember my mama not looking white folks in the eye when she walked me past this building." He leaned forward slightly. "And now? Now you'll rent it, run brunch on Bones. And when I walk through the front door, your girl tells me I don't belong." The silence was heavy. Not awkward, not dramatic, just heavy, like the truth always is. Matt finally spoke. "So what are you saying? You're not renewing us?" Len reached into the folder, pulled out 2 papers. "This," he said, sliding one across the table, "is your notice of non-renewal." Matt snatched it up like it was burning. "And this," Len held up the second page, "is the lease agreement for a new tenant, black-owned. They sell books, host poetry nights, and they remember who used the back door." He slid the paper over to Nina, who stamped it with a single satisfying clunk. Lindsay gasped. "You can't be serious. We have thousands of followers. You're going to lose business." "I don't own this block to gain," Len said. "I own it so history stops repeating." They left without another word. Matt knocked over a chair on the way out. Didn't pick it up. Nina let out a slow breath. "You sure about this, Grandpa?" He looked out the window, sun falling golden across the street. A couple of kids playing double dutch under the mural he helped fund. One of them wore a T-shirt with his father's face printed over the word Legacy. "Yeah," he said, "I'm sure." Then softly, "It ain't about the coffee." Word traveled fast on the block. By Friday, someone had already updated the Google listing. Honey Thatch Café, permanently closed. They didn't even last the full 30 days. Packed up in a hurry. No final brunch, no farewell post, no tears. Just silence and a locked door. The same kind they'd tried to send Len around the back of. But this time, it was their turn to circle the building and looking for a way back in, and there wasn't one. The new tenant moved in that same week. Stacks and Stanzas, a black-owned bookstore with worn velvet chairs, an open mic calendar already booked through summer, and kids' poetry taped to the windows in crooked little hearts. The place smelled like fresh paper and frankincense. Len walked in the day before their grand opening, cane clicking lightly against the freshly polished floor. The owner, a woman named Misha with salt and copper locks and ink-stained fingertips, met him at the door like royalty. "Mr. Leonard," she smiled, eyes shining. "I don't even know what to say." "You already said it," he replied, nodding toward the chalkboard above the cash register. On it, in big handwritten letters, "We walk through the front door. Always." He smiled, but what caught his eye next wasn't the quote. It was the photo. His daddy's photo. The same one Nina had framed. But this time, someone had added another beside it. A younger Len, early 20s, mop in hand, smile shy, standing beside his father in front of the same building. Underneath, "Then, now, always ours." Len swallowed, slow. Felt the years catch up to him in the chest. Heavy, but not in a painful way. Like closure, like breath. That afternoon, the doors of Stacks and Stanzas opened wide. The first customers were kids. A group from the elementary school 3 blocks down. Brown-skinned, braids flying, shoelaces untied, pockets full of questions. They wandered in like it was sacred ground. Len sat in the corner with a newspaper and coffee someone handed him without asking. No fanfare, no applause, just presence. Nina popped in halfway through the soft launch, kissed his cheek and whispered, "They're already trending." He didn't ask what that meant. He didn't care. Later, one of the little boys, who couldn't have been more than 7, came up to him and pointed at the photo. "Is that you?" Len nodded. The boy frowned. "You look different." "I got older," Len chuckled. "Did you own the building back then, too?" Len paused, then said softly, "Not yet, but I knew I would." The boy grinned wide. "I'm going to own something, too." "You better," Len said, tapping his cane on the floor once, And make sure when you do, you let everybody through the front." Outside, the sun dropped slow behind the trees, coating the sidewalk in that golden light only southern evenings know how to give. Len stood by the window and watched the block. Same streets, new rhythm. But this time, the beat sounded like belonging. Len woke up to knocking. Not the sharp kind, not trouble, just the kind of knock that came with a clipboard and too much confidence. He pulled on his slippers and opened the door slow, letting the screen creak like it always did. Two white men stood on his porch in matching navy polos. One held a leather folio, the other had a badge clipped to his belt. "Mr. Leonard Bennett?" Len leaned on the doorframe. "That's me." The taller one spoke first. "I'm Trevor Price. This is my associate Darren. We're with Oakland Revitalization Partners. We've been reviewing parcels in this district for redevelopment, and we're very interested in your block." Len blinked. "My block?" "Yes, sir," Darren chimed in. "You own 6 properties along it, including that old bookstore lot. We've seen potential for upscale condos, boutique retail, and—" Trevor stepped forward, flashing a rehearsed grin. "We're prepared to offer a generous package. All cash, no closing delays." Len said nothing, just studied them. Their smooth jaws, their untouched hands, their shining optimism about things they didn't build. "You see that magnolia tree over there?" Len asked, pointing to the edge of the porch. Trevor followed his finger. Yes? My mama planted that the day I graduated high school. Said the roots would remember what the streets forget." The men looked confused. Len stepped outside, cane tapping the wood. "She used to say, 'If you don't know the history of a place, don't try to build on it. You'll only bury it again.'" Darren cleared his throat. "We understand heritage is important, Mr. Bennett. We'd preserve the character of the neighborhood." "The character," Len said, his voice calm, "wasn't in the buildings. It was in the people who had to scrub them before they were allowed inside." Trevor tried again. "Our offer stands at $2.1 million, but we're flexible." Len turned his back and walked inside. Didn't slam the door, didn't shout, just closed it soft. He stood in his hallway for a long time, looked at the family photos. His father in his work boots, his mother in her Sunday hat. Nina at 6 years old, holding a juice box and a protest sign. Himself, younger, proud, holding the deed to the building for the first time, like it was sacred, because it was. That night, Len walked down the block alone, streetlights humming, shop windows dim. He stopped in front of Stacks and Stanzas, where a handwritten sign on the door read, "Black history is not a trend, it's the foundation." And there was something about that, the simplicity, the truth of it, that settled deep in his bones. He didn't need their money. He had something rarer, stewardship. And he'd learned long ago, owning the land means owning the narrative. And this one wasn't for sale. 3 months passed. The block had changed. Again, but this time, not with the loud bulldozers or glittering renderings of live work lofts. No glossy banners, no fences, no exclusion, just people. Black folks, elders with folding chairs and plastic bags from the corner grocer, teenagers freestyling outside the bookstore, mothers letting their kids play double dutch without clutching their purses tight, people who belonged. And Len. He sat beneath that magnolia tree most days now. Same hat, same cane, just older, still watching, still present. The roots reached wide beneath him, roots he knew would hold even when he was gone. One afternoon, a white woman approached the tree, mid-40s, yoga pants, holding a smoothie in one hand and a guilt-heavy look in the other. "Excuse me, Mr. Bennett?" Len looked up. It was her, the girl from the café. Not in coral this time, no iPad stand, no tight-lipped smile. "I wanted to apologize," she said. "Formally, for the way I treated you. When I look back, I feel sick and stupid." He studied her, not to punish, just to see. And when he spoke, it was soft, careful. "You saw what you were taught to see." She nodded, eyes glassy. "I'm working for a non-profit now," she added quickly. "Doing community development work, trying to unlearn some things." "Good," Len said. "Keep at it." She hesitated. "You ever think about selling the block, letting it become something bigger?" Len smiled, slow and warm. "It already is." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Len walked one last time down the length of his street. Each window glowed, the barber shop that came back after 20 years, the soul food kitchen that smelled like collards and memory, the mural of his father, now joined by his mother Nina and even a younger version of himself, stretching across the brick in colors that vibrated. He reached the bookstore, now buzzing with the sound of live jazz. Someone held the door open. "Come in, Mr. Leonard," they said. "We saved your seat." He stepped through the front door, not as a guest, not as a tenant, not as a relic, but as the foundation. The man who remembered, who refused to forget, who made space. And now, finally, the world was learning to walk through his door.